Hi, my name is Clara Hensley. 5 years ago in Mesa, my parents told me I was no longer their daughter and forced me out of the house while I was pregnant with twins Asher and Isla, the children of a man they said would never stay. Can you imagine being abandoned by the people who are supposed to love you most? They believed every lie my sister Lorena and brother Silas spread, calling me reckless and ungrateful without a single question. When I reached for my mother Marla, she just looked away, silent. You've always been too stubborn, Clara. Her words cut deeper than any betrayal. I held the twins close and whispered, "We'll be okay." Rowan Pierce, my closest friend, helped me carry our bags to a motel room. "Do you think they'll regret this?" he asked softly. I didn't answer. I just smiled, knowing storms reveal strength, and that even when everyone doubts you, you can rise stronger than ever. Have you ever been treated as if your existence was a mistake? Drop where you're watching from in the comments, and subscribe to hear my full story of betrayal, resilience, and triumph. It started on a Sunday, one of those warm, bone-dry spring days in Mesa, Arizona, when the jacaranda trees painted the sidewalks a soft lavender haze. I remember brushing the stray petals off the windshield of my car before walking into my parents' house. It felt almost like walking into a trap I did not know had been carefully set. My dad, Gerald, had called the meeting with nothing more than a short message, "Just a casual family dinner tonight, be here by 5. Nothing out of the ordinary. I thought maybe it had something to do with my graduate school applications, or Silas's new job, or Lorena's endless wedding planning. But when I walked in, no food was on the table. No smells of Mom Marla's baked ziti or her store-bought Caesar salad dressing. Just silence, and 3 people already seated on the couch like they had been waiting for hours. Gerald did not hug me. He did not even stand. "You're late," he said flatly. "Traffic I-17. I offered, still half smiling, scanning the room for a clue. Marla stared down at her folded hands. Silas was sitting smug, like he had just aced a test he had never studied for. Lorena looked away, but there was something rehearsed in the tilt of her jaw, like she had practiced this exact moment in front of a mirror. Clara, Gerald said at last, "We need to talk, and we need you to sit down." That was when I knew something was deeply wrong. I sat stiff-backed on the armchair closest to the window. The late afternoon light behind me made their faces even harder to read. "You've been taking money," Silas said, skipping any build-up, "from Mom and Dad's retirement account." I blinked. "What?" He slid a printed statement across the coffee table, a highlighted section circled in orange marker. "A withdrawal. I didn't—" I started, but Gerald raised a hand. Lorena jumped in like she could not wait another second. "And she's been seeing that married guy, you know, the one who works at Banner Hospital. She even tried to sleep with my fiancé too. He told me everything. I could not breathe. My hands gripped the fabric of my jeans. Are you serious right now?" I looked at her, at all of them. "You think I would touch your fiancé or steal from our parents?" "Don't lie," Clara Marla said softly, eyes still down. "You've changed. We do not recognize who you've become." No one asked me. I said louder than I intended. "You're just sitting here throwing out accusations like they're facts." "Enough," Gerald said. "We had a long talk. We've made a decision." Then came the sentence that cracked the floor beneath me. "We're removing you from the family trust, and we think it's best you leave tonight." "Leave tonight," I echoed. I looked around the room at the walls lined with family photos at the spot where I used to curl up and read next to the fireplace. It did not feel like my home anymore. It felt like I was a stranger. They could not wait to forget. "You have 1 hour," Silas said. 1 hour, I whispered. "We've already packed a bag," Lorena added. "It's in the hallway." I stood up, feeling like I was floating outside my own body. I walked past them, past Marla, who did not look at me, past Silas, and Lorena, who smirked like this was a performance well executed. On the way out, I caught Gerald by the trash bin in the garage. He was tossing something in my old family photo album. "Seriously?" I asked. He shrugged. "Figured you wouldn't need this where you're going." I did not cry. Not then. My legs carried me out to the car, and I drove aimlessly, fingers trembling on the steering wheel. I ended up in a motel off Van Buren Road. One of those rundown places where the curtains never fully close, and the AC unit buzzes constantly, like it is trying to escape the wall itself. I sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like forever. No tears came, just silence pressing in around me. Then I felt it deep in my stomach, a pull. Not pain exactly, but a weight I had not noticed before. I realized I had missed my period. I got up, grabbed my purse, and walked 2 blocks to a gas station. Bought the test. Back in the room under the harsh yellow bathroom light, I watched the lines appear. 2. Positive. I did not scream. I did not cry. I just stared at the mirror at my own reflection. "You are not alone," I said aloud, my voice steadier than I expected. And then, almost without thinking, I whispered to the tiny life inside me, "You are the only truth they could never erase from me." The motel room smelled of bleach and old carpet. Outside, the neon vacancy sign buzzed faintly like a restless insect. I sat at the small table near the window, the pregnancy test box still lying open beside me. The mirror was across the room, but I did not need to look again. The truth was already pulsing through me like a second heartbeat. I slid open the side pocket of my duffel bag and pulled out something I had not touched in years, my diary. Black leather cover fraying at the edges, pages bent from being tucked away so long. It had survived dorm rooms, road trips, one minor flood, and now this exile. Funny I never let them know it existed. I opened to a random page, then another. My handwriting was smaller back then, more hopeful, less guarded. I scanned through a few entries about lab work, late barista shifts, texts with Rowan, back when we were still in that stage of flirting but pretending we were just friends. Then I saw the date that hit like a bruise. March 12th, junior year. Silas had asked me to explain the gene splicing segment from our capstone. He kept nodding like he was really into it. Turns out he just repeated my whole section during the team presentation. Did not even bother to change a single word. Professor emailed the group afterward and said Silas showed leadership initiative. Gerald printed it out and framed it. I slammed the book shut for a second. That memory still burned. I remembered how Marla clapped for him in the living room. "Your brother is finally stepping up, Clara," she said proudly. I stood there speechless while he soaked in their pride with that grin that never reached his eyes. I opened the diary again, turned more pages. Lorena, there she was too, always immaculate, always center stage. But it was not her spotlight that made her cruel. It was how she guarded it. Another entry. Grandma Evelyn had let me wear her old pearl bracelet that day. Lorena saw it and said, "That should obviously be mine. Grandma only gave it to you because she felt bad you were not pretty enough for the pageant." I pretended not to hear her, but she made sure everyone else did. I swallowed the sting. That bracelet was not even the half of it. What Lorena did not know, what no one did, was that Grandma Evelyn had secretly left me her wedding ring. A little gold band with a sapphire center. I kept it hidden inside a hollowed-out book. It was the one thing I had from someone who truly saw me. She saw me. A week after Grandma Evelyn died, Lorena stood in the backyard during a family brunch. She boldly announced she was going to use Grandma Evelyn's ring as her something old for the wedding. No one corrected her. I stayed quiet. I was not brave then. Not yet. And her wedding, God, they let me come. They gave me a seat in the 4th row, squeezed right near the giant speakers. When the time came for speeches, I stepped up to the microphone. It cut out. Lorena waved it off with a laugh. "Technical glitch, nothing serious," she said lightly. Then she turned to the crowd and launched into her own toast. The microphone worked perfectly fine for her. Back in the motel room, I looked around like maybe the walls might offer comfort. They did not. I glanced at the test again, still positive, as if the line had deepened overnight. I reread the instructions like maybe somehow I had misinterpreted. I had not. The weight of the truth pressed down against me, not just the baby, but the realization that I had never really been one of them. Not in their eyes. I was tolerated, never treasured. My phone vibrated on the table, an unsaved number. I almost did not pick it up. The text preview read, "I am coming to Tucson. If it is true, you are not alone, Clara." Rowan. I had not even told him. Not yet. But somehow he knew, or maybe he had always sensed it. And for the very first time since I was thrown out, something inside me stopped trembling. The man who still looked at me kindly. I do not know how long I stood there, just staring at the screen, like it might change if I looked hard enough. The motel room suddenly felt too small for the shift happening inside my chest. The window was cracked open a few inches, letting in the dry Arizona air and the distant hum of traffic. The silence around me was thick, but I was not entirely alone anymore. There was a knock. It was not loud, just a steady, familiar rhythm. I froze with my phone still in my hand. Then I crossed the room and opened the door. He looked the same, but also like he had been through something of his own. Rowan stood there in a grey shirt, the sleeves rolled just enough to show faint tan lines on his arms. His eyes met mine gently, not searching for an explanation, not demanding a performance. Just presence. "You okay, Clara?" he asked softly. I could not find the words, not at first. So I stepped back slowly, and he came in. We did not hug. We did not cry. There was not that kind of drama. He just sat in the chair near the window while I perched on the edge of the bed like someone visiting a stranger's house. The silence stretched between us, not awkward but heavy with everything unspoken. Eventually I whispered, "I truly did not expect you to come." He did not answer right away. Instead, he glanced at the small table by the bed, where the pregnancy test still sat beside an empty water bottle. He did not point. He did not question. He just said softly, "Want to get out of here for a little bit?" I nodded. We drove in his truck, an older Ford, the kind that vibrates just enough to make conversation easy to postpone. He parked outside a small diner with cracked vinyl booths and windows that had not been properly washed in years. The kind of place where no one cared who you were as long as you paid in cash and tipped halfway decent. We sat at a booth by the window. Rowan ordered coffee for us both black. The waitress did not bother with a menu. Neither of us were there for food. When the coffee arrived, he looked at me once and said, "You do not owe me anything at all, Clara." "I am pregnant," I said. I did not even ease into it. He did not blink. He did not flinch. He just reached for a paper napkin, grabbed a pen from his jacket pocket and scribbled something down. Then he slid it across the table. One word. Together. I stared at it like it was a language I had not seen in years. "I do not want to run," he said. "Not from this, not from you." I laughed a short breath that was not quite humor. "You do not know what you are signing up for, Rowan." "Maybe not," he admitted, "but I know very well what I walked away from." He told me then about his family old money from the Northeast Vineyards biotech patents and expectations thicker than blood. They wanted him to marry the right girl, invest in the right projects, say the right words at the right gala. He had left it all. "You do not know this," he said, "but I saw the way your brother talked over you during that university pitch event. I saw the slide deck you built. I knew exactly whose work it was. If you have ever been silenced, ignored, or had your hard work stolen by someone you trusted, how did you respond in that moment? Share your story below. I would love to hear it. Comment number 1, if you have ever felt erased. My fingers tightened around the coffee mug. I had not thought anyone had noticed. Silas had strutted across that stage like he had built the whole concept. My name was not even in the footnotes. He took the credit because he knew they would always believe him more than you, Clara, Rowan said quietly. I looked out the window. A teenage boy in a hoodie crossed the parking lot, skateboard in one hand, headphones around his neck. The world was still spinning. Life was still moving, even after everything had come apart. "Lorena used to tell people I was the weird one," I said, almost smiling. "She used to say I was Grandma Evelyn's favorite because I liked books more than parties. She resented my closeness with her, resented that I did not need her approval just to breathe." He nodded. We talked for nearly an hour. No interruptions, no performances, just truth told plainly between sips of bad coffee. I told him about the trust being rewritten, about the accusations, about the single hour I was given to leave, and the photo album that landed in the trash. I told him about the motel, the nausea, the mirror, and the test strip that confirmed something both terrifying and holy all at once. I did not cry. I could not. I had cried all I had to cry, long before I even called the front desk for extra towels. When we left the diner, the sun had started its slow, golden descent toward the west. The air had cooled slightly, but the sidewalk still radiated heat from the long afternoon. We walked past the edge of the lot, where the pavement gave way to desert brush cacti, tall and stoic, like silent, patient witnesses. Rowan did not rush the silence. He let it stretch comfortably between us. Then he reached for my hand, gentle but firm. "I am not asking you to forgive them," he said softly. "But I would really like to help you build something better together." I did not answer immediately, but I did not pull away either. I looked down at my stomach, then up at the sky, open and endless, painted with the pale orange streaks of the fading sun. The next morning, I sat up slowly on the pull-out couch, sunlight slipping through the blinds of Rowan's small apartment. It was not luxurious. 2 rooms, bare walls, a coffee maker that grumbled louder than it brewed, but it was the first space in weeks where I had woken up without flinching. No yelling, no glares, no walls closing in. I swung my legs over the edge and sat for a minute, letting my hands rest on the soft, gentle rise of my belly. Still small, still hidden from the world, but not hidden from me. On Rowan's little kitchen counter, a note lay neatly, "Went to pick up more coffee. Do not leave without breakfast." I smiled just barely, and then turned on my phone. Dozens of unread notifications blinked at me from apps I should have deleted weeks ago. My sister's Instagram, another party, another fake smile. My brother tagging himself at our parents' house with the caption, "Sundays are for family." I had not even realized it was Sunday. I opened my contacts. My thumb hovered for a beat far too long before tapping delete contact. "Are you sure?" I silently asked myself. Yes. I deleted all of them one by one. Silas, Marla, Gerald, even the ones that simply said, home. I did not want reminders of a place that had thrown me out like rotted leftovers. I stopped checking their social media. I logged out, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. I was not erasing them to hurt anyone. I was erasing them so I could finally see myself clearly again. That afternoon, I called a women's clinic under a different name, Elena Mason. It was not the first name I had considered, but it came easily. Eleanor sounded like someone no one would be looking for, someone no one had erased or even noticed. I paid in cash and sat in the waiting room, between a teenager nervously chewing her sleeve and a woman my mother's age who looked like she had not eaten since Thursday. The nurse did not ask many questions. She just took my vitals, scheduled a follow-up, and handed me a neatly printed pamphlet about prenatal nutrition with a smile that did not feel rehearsed. No family insurance, no emergency contact. Just me, a clipboard, and the quiet, silent promise that I would figure this out. I was not just carrying a child, I was carrying a future that no one else would shape this time. Later that week, I spent hours at the downtown library in Mesa, Arizona, not the glamorous part with coffee shops and murals, but the older wing, where the computers still rattled and every desk wobbled just slightly to the left. I researched grant programs, legal frameworks, and basic startup structures. I did not know exactly what I was doing. Not completely, but I knew clearly what I wanted to build: a biotech company, based on the thesis that Silas had once pitched as his own. This time, my name would be on every single page. Rowan never hovered. He did not offer to fix things or step in unnecessarily. He just made sure I ate properly, brought me backup pens, and sometimes quietly sat in the corner reading while I worked. We did not talk about his family, not really. But one evening over takeout and soft jazz gently playing from his phone, he said softly, "They tried to build me in their image. I would rather help someone build something real, something honest." That night, we made a quiet pact. No going back, no calling them, no hoping they would magically come around. I think that is what love looks like sometimes. Not grand gestures, just knowing exactly when to stay out of someone's way and still be right there quietly nearby. I filed for the LLC under the name Sawline Bio. It was simple. It stood for Saul as in son and line like lineage. Only now the line would begin with me. 3 days later, my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from a number I did not recognize. I pressed play. my breath already catching more from reflex than from fear. My mother's voice came through clipped cold and unmistakably sharp. "If you are still alive somewhere, then stay gone. Zinni is pregnant now. We do not need your drama." That was it. No greeting, no goodbye. I did not cry. I saved the voicemail and filed it under a folder labeled proof. Not for legal use, just to remind myself. So that years from now, if I ever doubted whether walking away had been right, I could play it once and remember exactly what I'd left behind. That evening I signed the final registration forms online for Shoreline Bio. It was not revenge, it was rebirth. The ink had barely dried on the registration papers when I found myself under fluorescent lights seated between strangers with laptops and investor lanyards. The co-working space was modern, all polished concrete and reclaimed wood, filled with startup energy, loud, caffeinated, confident. I did not quite belong, not yet. But I showed up anyway. I had borrowed a navy dress that still fit snugly around my belly and brushed my hair back into a low bun, hoping the quiet force behind my words would speak louder than the shape of my body. The pitch went fine, sharp, clear, rehearsed. I had practiced in the mirror in my sleep and in the bathroom stalls between bouts of nausea. I had written and rewritten every single line of the product roadmap. My numbers were not just good, they were airtight. But it only took one sentence to flatten everything. An older man, slick grey hair, tailored blazer, advisor tag, clipped neatly to his collar, tilted his head after I finished speaking. Then, with a smile that did not reach his eyes, he said, "Impressive resume, but honestly, we have already had our fill of single pregnant founders trying to prove a point, really." The room did not laugh. It did not need to. No one defended me either. I nodded once a little too tightly and walked out. Outside, the Arizona sun had softened into a warm golden glow, but my lungs burned from the inside. I did not let myself cry. Not yet. I pressed my hand over the place just beneath my ribs, the place where a second heartbeat lived, and told myself, keep walking, keep moving forward always. I made it as far as the bus stop before the nausea finally won. Bent over near a trash can, I retched violently until my throat was raw and sore. Someone behind me, woman in a stiff blouse and with overpowering judgmental perfume, clicked her tongue and muttered, "Girls like that really should not breed." She did not say it directly to me. She did not need to. I found the nearest coffee shop, slipped quickly into the restroom and locked the stall. The cold of the toilet's water tank was the only solid thing to lean against. I did not sob. It was worse than that. Silent tears so still I barely noticed until I tasted salt. My hands shook as I reached into my wallet. Hidden behind a card I never used was the photo I kept for no reason I could explain. It was me and Evelyn at Lorena's wedding. We were both laughing, caught mid-smile. I had worn a teal dress that day. She had worn lavender. I looked closer. I always looked at Evelyn's face, but this time I saw my own hand in hers. A moment I had long forgotten. Her palm had tucked something into mine, a ring. Not just any ring, hers. The one she wore when she married Granddad. The one she told me would be mine someday because you see, people see others for who they are, not for what they want from them. But at the will reading, it was Lorena who showed up, wearing it smug as ever. Grandma had said it belonged to the first daughter to marry she had announced, and no one questioned her. No one looked at me. I never said anything. I let the lie live because back then I still thought keeping the peace meant keeping the family. I folded the photo and tucked it back into my wallet like it was armor. When I stepped back outside, the sky was orange and mauve, the streetlights flickering to life one by one. I walked without a destination, letting the city carry me forward. By the time I reached the quieter part of downtown, I found a bench near a dry fountain. I sat, opened my notebook and wrote, not to my parents, not to Silas or Lorena. I wrote to the people I had not met yet, the ones who might back Shoreline Bio. I told them about the science, yes, but I also told them about the kind of founder I was slowly becoming. You will not find someone more relentless, I wrote, than a woman who built everything after being told she was nothing. I did not sign it with flair, just my name, Clara Hensley. That night I walked home with swollen feet and a cramp near my lower back. But I did not feel small anymore. I felt lit from within. Not like fire, but like the ember you think went cold until it glows again quietly in the dark. That morning I woke before the sun. Something in me had shifted. Not dramatically, not like a movie moment with swelling violins, more like a quiet, hardening the kind that does not melt when someone apologizes late or says, "But we are family, Clara." I sat at the corner table in the shared workspace laptop, open tea cooling beside me. I adjusted the font on my pitch deck again, not because it needed it, but because I wanted it to feel completely intentional, deliberate. Every slide told two stories, the science and the survivor. When I added the final line, founded by Clara Hensley, PhD in progress, because being a survivor does not mean you disappear, I did not hesitate to click save. That evening, the virtual startup showcase kicked off. 100 hopeful founders in boxes on a screen, dozens of muted judges. Rowan sat just outside my frame, not offering help, just steady, calm presence. I waited my turn, heart steady but mind racing. When my face filled the main window and I began presenting, I did not lead with trauma. I led with data, precise, forward-thinking, carefully structured and clean. Then I told the why I built this, not in spite of what I lost, but because of it. Slide by slide, I mapped out a vision for the kind of biotech product that could quietly change women's lives. Low-cost early hormone detection for underserved clinics, accessible, discreet, and reliable. The chat pinged. Reactions, questions. Then one judge leaned forward. He looked barely older than me. Sharp suit, sharper smile, almost predatory in his focus. "Wait," he said, Hensley. As in Lorena Hensley from the Phoenix Gala Foundation. My jaw did not clench. I did not blink. "No," I said evenly with deliberate calm. "I do not have a sister." The silence lasted just long enough for tension to thrum, then the chat erupted. "Whoa, did she just—" Damn, Rowan's text arrived a beat later. "Mic drop, Clara." I smiled just slightly, keeping my composure. I closed the call 5 minutes later with a polite nod and a soft, sincere thank you. Later that night, we ordered cheap pad thai and ate it straight from the cartons on the balcony of our shared apartment. The city lights shimmered like they always do when you are a little tired, a little hungry, and a little proud. Then Rowan shifted beside me. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. I set down my fork, listening intently. "My mother, she is friends with someone in your family. Your aunt. I think they went to school together. They still talk." My mouth went dry. "Aunt Delphine." He nodded. "She's the one who told my mom about the mess with you back before I knew any of this. And you didn't think to mention that I asked, voice quiet, but edged with curiosity. I did not want to lose you," he admitted. "It was a stupid answer. Honest maybe, but still stupid." I did not raise my voice. I just stood up, took a slow, steady breath and said, "No lies. No alliances with ghosts from my past. If I move forward, it is clean." He did not defend himself. He just nodded, pulled out his phone, and one by one deleted every contact tied to that part of his world. I watched him do it, feeling a quiet mix of relief and pride. Then I sat back down, letting the moment settle between us. The next afternoon, my inbox pinged. A subject line read, "Initial funding Sawline Bio." It was not $1 million. It was $25,000. But it was from someone who had watched the pitch and written, "Your conviction is unforgettable." I would bet on that kind of clarity any day. I stared at the email until it blurred, not from tears, just disbelief, a stunned recognition that this finally was real. Then I printed the check, walked to the rooftop of the co-working space, and let the dry mesa wind slap my cheeks awake, making me feel sharper, more alive. Below, glowing off the side of a building, a billboard flickered. Lorena's face smiled beside a slogan about women's empowerment and charitable futures. It was a lie, just another polished image she wore better than the truth. I folded the check in half, slid it carefully into my blazer pocket and whispered, "You cannot erase what I have built, just because you screamed louder first." By the time my company had a name, I no longer needed theirs. Mesa Biotech was not flashy. It was not the kind of name you bragged about at a gala, but it was mine. Every single part of it had been built on ground. I scraped with my own hands, layer by careful layer, day by day. That morning, I zipped up my blazer over my growing belly and stepped out into the sunlit morning, not as someone's daughter, not as someone's sister, but as a founder. The Regional Medical Innovations Conference was being held at a swanky downtown hotel, the kind with marbled floors and triple lattes that cost more than a full lunch. Rowan parked a few blocks down so I could walk in alone. It was not about dramatics. It was about reclaiming the space my name had once been erased from. But nothing prepared me for what I saw. Right outside the main conference hall stood a 10-foot-tall banner silk, printed and perfectly lit, that read, "Women Leading the Future of Health, sponsored by the Clara Hensley Foundation." And right there, front and center, was Lorena's face, head tilted slightly. Eyes, modest, arms crossed like she knew exactly how to pose for legacy. Below that, quotes words pulled word for word from my thesis abstract. No attribution, no footnote, no mention of Mesa Biotech. I stood still long enough that someone brushed past me and muttered, "You okay, Hon?" I was not, but I nodded. The moderator called the next name on the mic mine. I walked past that banner without touching it, without looking back. Inside the panel neatly arranged on stage, Lorena was absent, of course. She only lent her face, never her presence, unless there was applause waiting. As I stepped up to the lectern, the room hushed. I clicked the remote. Slide 1 data charts, hormonal response mapped over trimesters. Slide 2, underserved patient response rates in rural clinics. Slide 3, a photo, my hands cradling my stomach, a sticky note on the mirror that read, "You are not invisible. They just cannot see what you are building yet." I took a breath, then spoke. "I was not invited to this panel," I said, steady voice carrying through the hall. "But I built the science you are funding, not with a dynasty, not with a PR firm, with a body no one believed could lead, and a voice they tried to drown in family shame." No one moved. I ended with the final slide, a time-stamped email thread showing the first draft of my thesis years before the foundation was created. Then I stepped down. Rowan met me at the foot of the stage, phone in hand. He had been recording already, uploading already, captioned, "The right twin built it." The tag caught like dry brush fire. My inbox began to fill before I even reached the parking garage. We made it to the car just as the sun dipped low, casting that molten gold light that makes everything feel almost warm, even when your stomach is turning in knots. Until I saw the windshield spray-painted in bright red, "Backstabber Trash Mom." Shame to the name. I stood there, not stunned, just still absorbing the insult like a quiet storm. Rowan rushed forward, cursing under his breath, but I walked calmly to the driver's side. There, under the windshield wiper, was an envelope with my name in perfect, deliberate cursive. Inside, a cease and desist letter, accusing me of defamation, demanding takedown of all posts, threatening to sue. At the bottom, Lorena's signature. Rowan's face flushed with fury. "Do you want me to call the police?" he asked, voice low and tense. I didn't answer. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, thicker than hers, heavier, purpose-built for this moment. Inside were screenshots of time-stamped research files, email threads with advisors, grant receipts, statements from lab assistants, copies of old mentorship logs, all meticulously organized with her name falsely attached to my work. I closed the folder, slowly tucking it firmly under my arm. "Let her try," I said softly, but sharp eyes glinting with quiet fire. "Let her swing first." I turned to Rowan and smiled, soft but cutting, because this time I brought the fire. The lawsuit was already drafted, I just hadn't hit send until now. And once I did, everything moved faster than I could have imagined. The silence between me and my family became legal paperwork. The ache in my chest became evidence. The sleepless nights turned into depositions. I arrived at the Mesa courthouse early that morning. The air was dry, the sky clear in a way that made every line and shadow feel sharper. I wore the navy blazer my mother once said, made me look too masculine for a daughter. I smiled while buttoning it that morning. She was right, it wasn't feminine, it was formidable. Inside the courtroom, The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The benches filled with quiet murmurs and the squeak of legal pads flipping open. Rowan sat 2 rows behind me. No tie, just present. That was enough. My attorney, a woman named Naomi, with the calm fury of someone who had clawed her way through decades of boardrooms, leaned over and said, "You ready to let this breathe?" I nodded once. Then the first bomb dropped. "Your Honor," Naomi began, "we are not just bringing forward intellectual property theft. We have testimony from a former NIH grant officer confirming that Clara Hensley used proprietary research authored by Clara Hensley to secure both federal funding and non-profit status." You could hear the air leave the room. The judge, a sharp woman with tightly coiled hair and an even sharper gaze, did not blink. "Proceed." And just then the doors opened. Lorena entered wearing a cream-sheath dress and sunglasses that clashed awkwardly with the fluorescent lights. Her heels clicked slowly, deliberately, as if she was still performing on a stage. When her eyes met Rowan's seated form behind me, her jaw locked. She had not expected him to stand by me. That was her first mistake. Lorena's legal team, all polished teeth and performative civility, tried their angle. "This is a tragic misunderstanding among family," one of them said, voice carefully modulated. "Grief, sibling rivalry, confusion over academic boundaries." I stood. The courtroom grew quiet again. "I would like to submit additional evidence," I said. My voice did not shake, not even slightly. I walked confidently up to the bench, pulled a small USB from my purse and handed it carefully to the clerk. "Audio files," I explained. "Conversations recorded outside my old bedroom. I had no idea they were being said loud enough to capture, but they were clearly." The judge raised an eyebrow. "And what do these recordings contain, Miss Hensley?" "My mother, my sister, my aunt," I said steadily, "all discussing how to cut me out because I was too stubborn to control." I did not cry. I did not need to. I watched it ripple through the room, the unease, the shock, and in a strange, quiet flash, my mind pulled me backward. A younger me sitting cross-legged on my childhood bed, the sound of laughter echoing from the hallway. I remember freezing, hearing my mother say, "She is not smart, she is just difficult like her father." That night I curled into the smallest shape I could manage, but here in this courtroom I stood tall, every inch of me resolute. The judge took a long, deliberate breath and nodded to the bailiff. "We will recess to review the submitted recordings. In the meantime, I am granting a temporary injunction. Miss Clara Hensley is barred from representing or financially benefiting from any material related to Phoenix Biotech, its subsidiaries, or any derivative works tied to the plaintiff's graduate research." There it was. Not applause, not cheers, just silence, which in court is as loud as justice ever gets. As the crowd filed out, Lorena looked around desperately for someone, anyone, to walk out with her. Our parents sat rigidly on the opposite side of the room. My father looked down at his folded hands. My mother stared blankly ahead. They did not move. Lorena stood there alone in a sea of whispers and camera flashes. Reporters surged toward me as I stepped into the sunlight outside. Microphones, lenses, questions. One voice broke through sharp and clear. "Miss Hensley, is there anything you would like to say to your family?" I paused just long enough for the hush to spread again. Then I said no. I already did in court. I did not go home to celebrate. I went back to the lab with my children asleep beside me. The space smelled faintly of ethanol and fresh paper. The overhead lights were dimmed save for the desk lamp by the culture station. Asher and Isla lay curled in matching blankets I kept tucked under my bench, their soft breaths rising in rhythm. One tiny foot had escaped, dangling over the edge of a cushion. I gently nudged it back under the quilt and kissed the crown of Isla's head. Their presence grounded me more than any court ruling ever could. My phone buzzed softly on the counter. A name I had not seen in years flashed across the screen, Dad. I hesitated for a moment, then slowly tapped the email open. Subject none. Hope you are proud. Lorena is gone. We are alone now. No apology, no explanation. just that single line, sharp and cold like a stone thrown into a deep well, and never waited on for the splash. I locked the screen and turned away, letting the words settle somewhere heavy in my chest. Instead of answering, I picked up the pipette and slid on a fresh pair of gloves, feeling the smooth snap of latex against skin. There was a compound waiting, one I had been refining for months, a synthetic protein derivative I had been researching for ovarian cancer. My mother had never gotten the chance to fight long. The diagnosis had come too late, and the silence between us had made the clock move faster than it ever should. So now I worked in her name, not to honor what she was, but to give life to what she never got to be. By the time the final drop had slid carefully into the assay, dawn crept through the narrow lab windows, painting the benches with a warm, forgiving light. I looked at my children once more, still fast asleep, and I whispered softly, "We are okay now, all three of us." The sun warmed the soil under my nails as I dug. Rowan was in the background, installing a small wooden swing from the pergola beam, his movements deliberate, careful, a quiet companion to the morning. The twins took turns patting dirt over the citrus saplings. "One orange, one lemon. Mommy, this one is Leo's tree," Leora said, wiping her brow like a tiny, determined farmer. Leo nodded seriously, as if the roots themselves depended on his careful approval. It was just a narrow strip of earth behind the house, boxed in by white stucco walls and sun-faded bricks. But it was ours. That morning I felt my lungs stretch in a way they had not in years. The doorbell rang, soft but insistent. A package sat on the stoop, plain, brown wrapping, no return address. I opened it slowly. Inside, protected by thick cardboard, was a single photograph. My fingers froze. It was the photo from my childhood, the one I had been cropped out of years ago, leaving only a corner of my arm visible. But this time, I was there awkwardly smiling off-center, in that hand-sewn blue dress Grandma Evelyn had made. On the back, neat handwriting read, "This is the version that matters." Rowan walked up beside me, brushing sawdust from his hands. "I found it in one of our old photo albums," he said gently. "The original print before the edits." I nodded. I did not need to say thank you. He already knew. Later, after the twins had gone down for their afternoon nap, we sat under the pergola with lemonade, surrounded by silence. The kind of quiet that comes only when no one expects answers anymore. Rowan asked, "Are you okay now?" I looked at the small grove we had planted, the swing creaking slightly in the breeze, the tiny shoe Leora had left by the planter. I looked down at my hands, stronger than before, lined from work, still faintly stained from the lab. Finally, I said, "I am not just okay. I am exactly who I was meant to be." Rowan rested his fingers lightly over mine, a quiet, steady gesture. Minutes later, the twins burst out chasing a butterfly, their laughter rising like a song. I leaned back, full breath in my chest, feeling the sunlight warm my face. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of my life, the triumphs, heartbreaks, and quiet victories no one else could see. They had tried to erase me, but I had not fought to be remembered. I had built something too real to ignore. I whispered to myself, "They erased me once, but I built a life that no one can erase." If you have ever felt silenced or overlooked, your story matters. Share your thoughts or a short phrase like freedom and strength in the comments below. Like this video if it resonates, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories of resilience and self-discovery. As the sun cast golden light across our grove, I smiled at Rowan and the twins, feeling complete, fiercely alive, and ready to continue building a life defined by our own truth. Thank you for sharing this moment. In the next video, we will continue the journey of healing and creating the life we deserve. Remember to honor your story, love yourself fully, and never let anyone erase your light.